hello to all participants.
We do not see your webcam, Maxime.
I'm very sorry. Do you see me now? Yes, you do. So I want to welcome everyone. Jean-Michel has already done so, but in my name and in the name of my co-moderator, Jean-Claude Pierry, I want to welcome everyone. I see some names that I've seen before, even some people I have met. So I hope this will be a fruitful session. It will be quite interactive. I will start with a short presentation, then we'll move on to a Q&A. And now during said presentation, a lot of questions will be directed toward you. The goal is not just to listen to me and to fall asleep, but to get to ask questions and react to what is being presented. So thank you very much, and let us begin. My screen is shared, right?
No, we do not see.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
It was just a delay. Okay, so what is our thematic today? Well, the end of lowest evaluated bidder, question mark, in other words. We're not sure. What the World Bank New Procurement Framework tells us. So our goal is to find out post-2016, post-New Procurement Framework. So this is a new procurement that is affecting World Bank guidelines in procurement, but also the guidelines of other development banks and eventually every donor and even national administration. So we want to see on this very specific topic, what are the new rules and are we moving toward a removal of the lowest evaluated bidder? You should be able to answer this question at the end of the seminar. Otherwise, we have a problem here. I would have failed in some way. So let us begin. First, let me ask you a question. I will ask you to answer that question in the chat section of your Zoom screen. So the one named chat. It's a very simple question. It is about procurement, but not about public procurement. It's about your own expenses. So the question is very simply said, which criteria is plural, right? You can have more than one, that you use to buy your latest mobile phone. So the one you are currently owning. So that would be mine, for example. So I'll let you quickly answer, and I'll let Jean-Claude collate those answers. I see that you're answering. That's good. A classic criterion would be price, obviously. Okay. So people are answering. So Jean-Claude, what do we have so far?
Well, good morning, everyone. Well, different kind of answers, and I would say, well, there's something about the method they are going to use, which is direct purchase or research online and order online, which looks like a shopping method, but also about the features. Well, I guess status, classic, friendly user, intuitive, value for money, price, functions, and quality, fit for purpose. So you can read already that we have people that are very familiar with the new procurement framework.
These are very interesting words I'm hearing, because these will be what I'll be discussing. Things like fit for purpose. If you're not familiar with the words, do not worry, I'll come back on that. Okay, we often get this kind of question in the chat or sent to us. Don't worry, I will send you the presentation and a few additional documents that you might already have, but that you need to understand what was discussed, such as the new procurement policy, the new procurement guidelines, so on and so forth.
Okay, wait a minute. I just have a new entry, which is the most economical to me, below 1,000 USD. So
yeah,
this is
phones are very expensive now. I can't believe it.
Yeah, it's helpful.
Oh, that's very good. Okay, so let's move on to the next screen. Now, what was the main criterion? Criterion is singular, used to procure these roads. Here's two examples, one in Ouagadougou. Where is that? It's in Burkina Faso. And one in Montreal, that's where SETYM is based. So you can see these two roads have something in common. Very different climate, different engineering firm, different construction firm, same beautiful result. So what was the main criterion? I'll leave you some time to comment.
Well, price is the first one.
Price is obviously the first one. This is probably
lowest evaluated tender, cost, everything comes now. Yeah, lower cost, lower price.
Yes, this is a lowest evaluated bidder type, and it is in both places. And I would add that the technical specifications were probably very weak, and or the supervision, Jean-Claude is an expert in contract management, for example. So the supervision might have known problems. There might even be collusion, corruption, so on and so forth, but it could be all kinds of problems, from bad specifications, they constructed what you requested, but it's no good, to, of course, a design that was not respected during the work. So it was not built as designed, which is the mission of a construction work site. So this is very worrying. Now, we want, with this presentation, to answer the question, can we do something else beside lowest evaluated bidder, right?
Responsive bid, eh? Yeah. Also, I had this one, most available material, which is
that makes sense, yes.
By Carol, yeah.
Good one. Might add that in Canada, in certain regions, a very advanced country, right? But there's lobbying for certain kind of materials coming from certain industries, and they might not be the most useful for the climate. In fact, they are pretty good, but they aren't. We could use more of, I'm not going to go into detail, something else, and would be more adapted to a 4-season climate like Canada. So let's move on, but you can see lowest evaluated bidder, not always good results. So first question for you. Questions are answered in the...
No, it's going to be a survey, I guess.
Survey. Question. This type of question will be answered in the survey section of Zoom. So what is the question? What are the guiding principles of procurement according to World Bank, but World Bank before the pre-2017 guidelines, so before the new procurement framework? That's classic one. So you have a survey here. You can pick one or several choices. Don't worry, there's no bad consequence if you make a mistake. So, sorry, this is advancing. You can see that many of the words that were used earlier to qualify the buying of your own phones are found again here, are present. I'll leave you a little bit more time. Okay. Okay. So it seems that transparency was the most popular principle, followed by efficiency, economy, and all kinds of other principles were there, but use of national contractor, only 27% answered that it was an important principle. It's actually one that is present in the old rules. It's not that all these concepts are present in one way or another in procurement, right? There's no fake concept here. But let's look at those that were present in the old version of the rule. So there were economy and efficiency, transparency, fairness, and promoting the use of national contractors. So very quickly, if I say promoting the use of national contractors, I am talking about giving an advantage to national during evaluation. Let's say a 15% advantage. So
it's the domestic preference, eh?
Yeah, what we call domestic preference in English. Fairness is about, of course, the process. So it's literally when you hear the sentence, letting everyone compete, or the openness of the process, we're talking about fairness. It doesn't mean that we don't apply criteria afterwards, but It starts with open procurement where everyone can compete if they are eligible. Transparency, of course, is all these times when you announce results, when you give a percentage evaluation of everyone that participates, these type of things. And economy and efficiency, lowest evaluated bidder, that's economy. Efficiency would be the efficiency of the process. They never explained it, but it means there's a good balance between how heavy the procurement process is and the value and strategic use of what we're procuring. So ICB to buy a printer, that's not efficient. Now, selecting the lowest evaluated responsive bid, as we say in the bottom, is a consequence of economy efficiency, as I said. And the main methods to attain economy and efficiency are competitive bidding. So that means international competitive bidding and NCB, national competitive bidding, and request for quotations, what we have called earlier, what Jean-Claude mentioned as shopping. So request for quotation and shopping are the same thing. So these methods lead to economy and efficiency under the old rules. Now, another image to let you think a little bit, make you think. Here, what kind of problem do we seem to have? A problem of alignment. Maybe our requirements were not proper. Maybe there was a fraud or problem during supervision, but there is something wrong with the planning here. There is something wrong with the construction here. As you can see, you cannot plug A into B, which is a problem for these type of constructions, as you obviously can ascertain. So since July 2016, that means any project, development project approved by the World Bank board, July 2016 and after, has to use this new procurement framework. We will send you, of course, this document. You probably already have it. All of those that talked about fit for purpose and so on and so forth, I'm assuming already have this document and have a level of familiarity with it, but we will still send you the document to make sure everyone now does. If you are not, if your primary language, for example, is not English, if you are speaking Portuguese, you can look on the website. We'll also send you a link. You have other language options. It was translated in Arabic and French and so forth, Chinese. So let's move on. Another question for you. So it will be a survey. Are you familiar with the World Bank procurement rules? We mean the new one. So there's yes, and I'm applying them. Yes, but it's purely theoretical. I have not applied them. And of course, no. So let's leave you some time to answer that. Okay. Okay, so far people seem to be, okay, it's quite evenly distributed, but people seem to be familiar with them, but have not applied them. Okay, so what does it mean? Why would this be the case? Well, quite frankly, it's because certain people have been trained or have read them, but they are working with national rules. They are working with other donors, possibly also. If you're working, but let me reassure you, if you're working with Islamic Development Bank, if you're working with the Asian Development Bank, the African Development Bank is very similar to World Bank rules. You are quite ready. Even your national rules have a lot of points in common. The only one that is very different is European Union. But I can see the result, and yes, 40% of people only know them, and 25% of people have no familiarity with it. So let me close this and move on. Okay, let me ask you now a survey question that is a little bit harder to answer. What are the new procurement framework guiding principles? You can select more than one. Now we add the old rules with these very simple economy efficiency. The new ones are clearer and more numerous? So I'll let you attempt to answer that. Okay, so looking at the results, the most common answer, 80% of people answered that, was value for money. That's very good because that's at the center of our presentation. Then, of course, every principle, we had at least 45% of the people saying it's a principle. Now, some of them aren't, to be honest, but we'll move on from that. What I see here is value for money seems to be the word that is most popular with my audience, and that's very reassuring because that's the most important guiding principle of the new procurement framework. So what are the 7 official principles? There is a policy document. It's a very short document, seven pages and 7 principles. We will send you this document. It's the official policy of the World Bank when it comes to procurement. These are the 7 principles: value for money, economy, integrity, fit for purpose, efficiency, transparency, and fairness. Some of them are quite obvious, economy, for example, but we need to focus on value for money and fit for purpose because they might be new concept for you and they are very central and they weren't there before in the old rules. So let's see what these 2 things are: fit for purpose and value for money. Oh, sorry. Fit for purpose. Well, an image, we say an image is worth 1,000 words. Now, is the small fish bowl fit for purpose here? Obviously not. The fish is too big for the bowl. Well, if you look at the bigger one, it seems to be appropriate for the fish in question. So fit for purpose, it's not about how much I pay. It's not about do I respect the procurement rules or these type of things. Fit for purpose means I am buying the right thing for my project or my unit for the goal that was set forth in advance. In other words, it's about the reason for the procurement. I must answer that need successfully. That's fit for purpose. I am buying the right thing and it's coming at the right timing to fulfill the needs of my organization or my project. Very important, and it wasn't there before, and sometimes it led to procurement plan being a mechanical exercise where I just don't question what I'm doing and purchase things, and some of them are no longer fulfilling the right need. So that's quite important. By the way, don't forget, if you want to ask question, you go in the questions. You can go in the Q&A. Jean-Claude is looking at them. At the end of the session, we'll have a lot of interaction. Even if something is so important that it fits with what I'm saying, he might interrupt me, that's correct, and then answer your question. So fit for purpose, truly important concept. The other one is value for money. That's major. Value for money, it's a very wide-reaching concept. It was not invented by donors. This is a basic thing that has been important in academia and in the private sector and with some government when it comes to logistics in general, right? Value for money means you're getting your money's worth. In other words, if I say it in a simple sentence, it means it was really worth it buying this, but concerning many aspects. Is it efficient? For every dollar that I'm spending on new books for kids, am I raising the quality of education? Am I raising the educational attainment of the kids? Economy. So that's the old principle, right? Let's not spend too much money if we can. But effectiveness. Am I getting the result I'm supposed to get? Fairness. Do I have a fair process? So value for money, it's truly saying considering even the risk, considering the environment of my procurement. Did I do the right thing and did I get value for the dollars spent? Is it the same as more advantageous bids? Is it more? How do we ascertain the most advantageous bid? To answer the question first, it's not the same as most advantageous bids. Going a little bit further, right? It touches upon things like risk, it touches upon things like respecting even the environment, the social environment, the physical environment, and even the economic environment. Is my project and the purchase of this road destroying the social fabric of this region? Be a question here. So, question we want to answer: how do we ascertain the most advantageous bid? And first, what is most advantageous bid? It's a word you might have been hearing a lot lately. So a most advantageous bid, unlike lowest evaluated bid, is not just, do you meet my criteria? I'll take the lowest price that meets the criteria. It's a mix of rated and yes/no criteria. Yes/no is, are you meeting this technical specification? Just like before. Rated is, there's two construction company and I'm rating the quality of their deployment plan. This one get 9 on 10, this other one get 5 on 10. So it looks like what you do for consultant, you're ascertaining quality. Life cycle costing is not just looking at the price I'm paying, but looking at how much it costs me to use, let's say how much fuel our 4x4 are using, how much maintenance they require over the life of the product, how can I dispose of the product in an environmentally safe way, so on and so forth. So it's looking at the cost overall of, let's say, city buses we're purchasing and not just the payment at the start. So a printer is not just about purchasing a printer, it's about how much it uses ink cartridges, how much it costs us to print. In other words, it's a higher cost than the printer themselves. So life cycle costing can be used for most advantageous bidding. You announce it in the bidding document and you have a methodology. Technical passing grade, of course. So just like you do with consultant, let's say you need 70% and more. Those below 70, I don't care if they have a good price. They don't get to win. So we are trying to protect ourselves against low quality. And in addition to all of that, in the new rules, you have measures in place to protect yourself against abnormally low or high tenders. So they are way outside of your estimate, the estimate in your procurement plan. So let's move on from that. Okay, now that we have had a little bit of this discussion, which additional criteria plural, would you use to purchase your new phone if you wanted to attain that value for money that we just discussed? So don't tell me value for money, tell me the criteria that you will use. And please answer in the chat section of your Zoom screen, because Jean-Claude will be collecting these and commenting on what you're entering.
But before that, I have a question from Carol Ofafa. Why isn't quality included as one of the core principles in the framework?
Quality doesn't need to be included as such because it is found in fit for purpose. For example, it is found in efficiency. What are we getting for how much we're putting? In other words, within value for money, the common meaning of quality is found. Now, if you mean quality as a technician, in other words, I'm building a road, and in addition to my supervising firm, I'm paying a firm to assess the quality. They're taking samples from the road. This is a completely different. This is a matter of technical specification. But if so that's as a road building technician. But if you're talking about quality as commonly discussed by people, it's already contained within some of the 7 core concepts. For example, fit for purpose, I'm getting the right thing. And value for money, obviously, what is the efficiency of what I'm getting? For every dollar that I'm putting, what am I getting? How good is it? When I'm grading criteria, when I use graded criteria, just like with consultants now, I am evaluating quality. Very good question.
Thank you. So I think you asked them to answer in the chat what would be the additional criteria they would use now, knowing the new procurement framework. So I'm collecting the answers in the chat section. Thank you. Resilience.
Resilience. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Is resilience important in the sense of a resilient item, right? Not resilience as a social concept. So you mean your phone doesn't break when you use it? Well, don't buy iPhones, then the screen is not so good for that. Very fragile.
There is battery life, after-sales services, efficiency, speed, and integrity of softwares, and security and data protection. So there is this kind of answers. Use internet access and SMS calls.
Yes, we just improved the quality of our technical specification by discussing value for money here, right? Because they are looking at usage of the phone, not just the price they're paying. They're looking at maintenance. They're looking at how long they can use the phone. Maybe, you know, with a good phone, maybe you don't use it anymore. You have a new one, but you can give it to someone else. You can. So there's all kinds of things that are interesting with value for money. I noticed that some of these things are covered by, for example, I don't know if you saw, life cycle costing. So they're under the umbrella of what we've been discussing.
Okay, so there's an interesting new one here by Fatou Njefal, durability.
Durability of the item. How many years will I be able to use it? As you've noticed, if I take phones, for example, the newest improvement have not been as exciting as the improvement in, say, 2010, when we would switch very quickly. So how long I can use the phone is now important to me because I don't really care about newer phones. It's not as important. Maybe technology will have a big jump, but right now it's pretty much stalling, just a slightly better camera, who cares? So durability becomes important. Why am I saying that? It's not because I want you to become procurement agents for phone. It's because look, when you are buying for government, look at how durable you need the equipment to be. City buses that break down every month, maybe their purchase price is low, but the value for money is not there if your maintenance costs are rising and rising. If the population is complaining that every morning they try to go to work using city buses and they cannot, or the bus is late, you might not have attained value for money because you just looked at the lowest rated bidder. So most advantageous bidder is often a very important way to evaluate things. Now, did we tell you that lowest evaluated bidder has disappeared? Well, if you understood that, you misunderstood. I haven't been clear. Lowest evaluated bidder can still be used, right? But very often you will have the option for goods, works, and obviously consulting services to evaluate using a most advantageous bidder approach. So taking into account graded criteria, life cycle costing, so on and so forth. You don't always need to do it. You have more options now. Did we have other questions? Yes.
Yes. Well, there were other answers to the question about the additional criteria. They mentioned the quality, the product specification. Priscilla mentions the guarantee, which is all fine. And well, the quality is about the new procurement framework. I got a question. How does the most advantageous criteria safeguard against subjectivity during evaluation if the competing tenders are all fitting for the purpose?
Oh, very good question. Okay, let's start with exactly what you said, that the bids you are receiving are fit for purpose. First, let me highlight that you already, if you're a procurement agent, have some skill in that area because you're evaluating consultants, right? And so you're grading. What happens is in a real evaluation of this, you have several steps. You start with classic, do they meet my technical specification? But I'm not grading. There's a series of things where it's yes, no. So you have a first technical specification and other criteria, let's say about their financial stability, so on and so forth. So the classic criteria for bidding documents, you might have a few of these where you say, I'm not going to evaluate, I'm just saying, do you meet these or not? Once this is done, the remaining firms, you will have announced in the bidding document some criteria and explain how you will grade them. To get 10, you need this. To get 9, you need this. You will have announced the criteria to be used. You say lifecycle costing will be about fuel use and maintenance, and we are using sources from the International Auto Manufacturers Organization, and we have this data. In other words, you announce how you will apply the criteria and what kind of results people will get. You do not invent criteria ad hoc during evaluation. You put them in your bidding document and you say, we will be using these and only these. If you meet this, you get a 10. But there's certain criteria will have a part of subjectivity, but you will need a certain expertise. If I'm evaluating someone's, okay, it's a construction in a protected zone, environmental zone, and I say you need to have proper past experiences in this, at least 3, having worked in similar environments. They will give you references, you will call the other projects, but you know, sometimes we would say this one fits or doesn't. So there's always a part of subjectivity in the evaluation, but it is much lower than you might expect, than an outsider might expect. These are announced criteria and they are already communicated in the bidding document to the future bidders to avoid pure subjectivity, which of course is not a good thing. I hope that answered the question.
Oh, yeah, I think so. I do have 2 interesting questions. Well, though they're in the chat and not in the Q&A section, I'm going to manage that. Can these principles be effectively applied to private in the same way they are expected to be applied to public procurement?
Indeed, they often are, and they came from the private sector. If you've worked, okay, first, if you are a very small company, you know what happened? It's often arbitrary. In other words, I can give a contract to my no good son-in-law if I want to, right? You know that. So my evaluation is just family harmony with absolutely no other criteria. And I'm picking the worst. A small company, I own the company, I can do that. Now, a big company, they use similar procurement rules to public procurement. And what they do, sometimes they say, we want the best we can have, but let's look at the pricing, obviously, too, but we're not looking at the lowest evaluated bidder. We want the most advantageous, best durability for the price, most value, in other words, that's value for money. Many companies do that. They would say, we're not buying the cheapest computers. We're buying good computers that will be fit for purpose, that will last many years, that are durable, that are resilient to shocks because our consultants travel, or this and that. We want nice screen resolution. And if we get better quality than what we requested, we'll see if we don't give the contract to these, even if the price is higher. We look at every dollar paid, what we're getting for it. Private sector absolutely does that. In fact, it is more common in the private sector. It's a typical thing that large American corporation, for example, will do, is employ a most advantageous bidder, but with, of course, price ceilings. They have budgets too. They're large companies, right?
Okay. Well, thank you, Chester James, for this question. I didn't mention you. And I do have another question from Daisy Karimi. And the question is like this. On the criteria, is the engineer's estimate factored in?
Yes, because let me go back so that, okay, when we're talking about an engineer's estimate, we mean that in the procurement plan, if we're building something, so if it's works contract, what happened before is you either add internally for smaller things, you prepare the design with an estimate, monetary estimate, and or you paid a third party, an engineering firm, to prepare your, let's say, road design for you. So the technical specifications are here, and then you have pricing estimate. In other words, oh, we need to dig, so this should cost us about this. We need to do this and that. It's way more detailed than that, but it's a BOQ, and then you have pricing. So this thing tells us overall this contract should be $1 million US, and getting started is this price, the other things is this price, so on and so forth. I don't want to get into detail of building a road or whatever, but the overall idea is I have estimates for everything. And then you get bids on the same things, but with different pricing. They fill up the document. So should it be, is there a use in our engineering estimate? Yes, there is. Look at the lowest point you see here in the why use most advantageous bidder. And normally low or high tenders can be rejected. How do you know something is abnormally low or high? You compare it to your engineering estimate. I will add a data point. You compare it overall, but in a good evaluation of a works bid, you also compare different sections overall with your engineer estimate to see if certain parts of if overall the price is good, but is it unbalanced? Are they employing front loading? There are rules for all of these things. So
Okay.
answer to your question is yes, but to be more specific, if you want, okay, to do some reading, I will send a document on unbalance and on abnormally low tender. Okay, I will send, it's not, I have a presentation from myself, but
Hold,
I will send
wait
you,
a minute. Maxime, can I interrupt you for a while? Because you're already finally answering a question by John Mativo about the unbalance or the front load bidding. And well, the question is like this, so maybe you can answer this at the same time. How do you ensure that the bidders who front load their prices on BOQ items are not allowed? And probably you want to explain the different terms here. Front load, you were already doing this, and maybe the BOQ for those who are not familiar with that abbreviation.
Okay. First, I held a webinar a couple of weeks ago. I cannot remember exactly the date on exactly the topic of abnormally low tender, front loading, so on and so forth. I can send you materials, but what happens is an abnormally low tender or abnormally high is comparing overall. So my overall engineering estimate is 1 million, your bid is 1.5 million. That's quite higher. So basically you have rules that are always sent to everyone and you do the calculation. If it's 20% higher than your engineering estimate, there's a problem. And you'll see in my email, but you basically ask them questions, see why their price is lower or higher, it depends, right? Usually it's lower, that's the most important because they might win. You ask them questions, they need to justify. If the justification is not to the satisfaction of the evaluation committee, you can reject. When it comes to front loading, what is front loading is when there's a 2-year, let's say it's 2-year construction contract, and you see that overall the price of the contract is normal, it's matching pretty much your engineer's estimate. However, everything that comes within the first 4 months, 6 months is extremely high compared to the engineering estimate. Everything that comes in the 18 months after is extremely low. What are they trying to do? They are overcharging you for early works, so getting the money early, and after that, they undercharging you. But overall, the price, so that's front loading. Very common in construction. At best, it's a way to manage cash flows. At worst, they have no intention of ever finishing on the work site. So it's fraud. So you have to be careful. There are rules on that when you analyze the situation, and you may reject or even up their bid security. So in the document I'll send you, you'll see how to apply this because it would take another hour to explain that. But basically you have protections in place in the new procurement framework to protect the project or the organization against abnormally low tenders and front loading and or unbalanced bids. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you very much. There's a very interesting question also by Carol Ofafa. In procurement by transmission utilities, can previous experience from bidders who mismanage prior project be used as a criteria for selection, even if they have the most reasonable bid?
Yes. In fact, when you're looking for most advantageous and evaluating quality, you must, in an earlier stage, ask for references. That's A, and they must meet, okay, usually in construction, as you know, it's not 200, it's 2 or 3. And so you would ask for 2 letters of good completion from another client. Now, that's not exactly the question you're asking. What you're asking is, maybe they have these 2 letters, but they did 5 other work sites where everything went badly. So what happens is, first, donors have a blacklist if people don't perform, and this blacklist can be applied, and they even if you're dealing with another donor, they say we accept the blacklist of, say, the World Bank. That's A. But B, post new procurement framework, your own national blacklist can be employed even when receiving World Bank financing, providing it's not arbitrary, it's constituted according to the rules of a blacklist. So because of that, you will have more protection even against people that did problem locally in your country, but that did not cause problem with the World Bank before. So you could reject them if they already caused problem on other worksite. It's a clause, by the way, already in the bidding documents. You don't need to add it. It's already there.
But if I can add something about that, we are talking about here the qualification of bidders, which is already available before 2016. But there is an interesting thing in that is that with the new procurement framework, you can use any kind of evaluation criteria you may want to use for the purpose of the evaluation, which is a new thing because usually these evaluation criteria were mostly used for consulting services, but now they're going to be applied to works and goods, which is a new possibility for you and which is extremely important for us while selecting the appropriate bidders. Please, Maxime.
Very good addition. Here you're looking at product lifecycle management. I want to highlight once again that it's not just using a product. You can add lifecycle criteria about how easy and costly is it to dispose of the product in an environmentally safe way. To give you a normal example, if I am running a national bank, I will need to get rid of computers. So how expensive is it? Because I don't just break them. I want to respect my national environmental rules, A and B. The kind of data wipeout for confidentiality, because there might be financial secrets that must be done or to be taken into account. I'm not just inventing this, by the way. I did consulting for banks and that's how it works. So you may add criteria having to do with lifecycle management. We used a very simple example when I discussed it earlier, right? Printers. It's not just the price of the printer, it's the price of the cartridge, so using the printer. So the whole cycle can be taken into account.
Okay, Maxime, okay, I'll let you finish. Well, though, maybe before you go to that, sorry if I interrupt, there's a question by Chester James, and it's about the abnormally low or high bids. Is it possible that the engineer's estimate may have been incorrect?
Yes.
How can the process be managed going forward?
Okay, so what happens is an engineer's estimate may be flawed because of several reasons. For example, through no fault of your own, it is possible that, let's take municipal contract for repairs. They're some of the most fraudulent, the most, let's say, dangerous kind of contracts because firms tend to collude together and price out. So if you have a new entry, a new company, and they bid the real price, you would think it's abnormally low because your past is all overpriced for 10 years, 20 years. So what happens is the engineer's estimate might be correct when it comes to old pricing, but the old pricing was fraudulent, so your estimate will be off. That's just one reason why an engineer's estimate may be off. So what you can do is when you have several bidders, you will see in the email, but it's 5 and more responsive bidders, right? You can use a mathematical calculation to base your reference on these responsive bidders bid instead of your engineer's estimate, allowing you to bypass a wrong engineer's estimate. You're using statistics of responsive bids basically to overcome that problem. It's in the methodology, yes.
Okay, so maybe I'll let you go back to your slide. I do have a question by Fatou, but I'm going to ask it later.
Okay, road construction rated evaluation criteria. It's just an example for you. I'm not going to read through it. You will get the presentation, but it's to show you it's not just the price. See, there's 200 points, price is 100. So there's other things that may be important, like remuneration and benefits of the employees. You want the local economic benefits plan, so on and so forth. You might have all kinds of criteria. These are examples. Okay, and then synthesis before we move on to additional question with our remaining time. Oh, sorry. Request for proposals can be used. In the new procurement framework, you can still, you can use request for proposal. In other words, you can work with graded criteria like you do for consultants. You can use request for proposal for goods and works. That's what I mean by that. You can use graded criteria like you do evaluating quality with consultants. So rated criteria can be used, and also life cycle. Oh, my mistake, not posting.
Okay, well, because you were very fast on the previous slide, I do have a question by Shivanand Ramanan. It was the table about the different evaluation criteria for construction. Why is past performance given a score? How do you evaluate past performance
What
using a
you do
score?
is you build a grid.
Sorry, Maxime. Sorry, let me finish. How do you evaluate past performance using a score? It's either past performance is good or not, in which case it crosses a selection hurdle.
Okay, there are two ways to employ past performance. One is in the way you're saying you need at least 2 references with letters of good completion from past clients. This you will do. But after that, you say, I want to distinguish more fully between several companies. So those that pass this, you can add a graded criteria where you say, if you have 3 references, you get 5 points. 4 proper reference, 6 points, so on and so forth, up to a ceiling. So you can distinguish between someone that has 7 good reference that are receivable. You will say, this is receivable, this is not, this doesn't fit, so on and so forth. And someone who has only 2. So it can be used as a graded criteria and just as a yes, no. That's different. Past performance, okay, we're not magicians. We cannot just say, I feel this firm was good. No, we count past experiences with references and we say, looking at the kind of work is the same kind of work or the same kind of goods, right? And it's the same general prices within 80%, in other words, is the rule in construction. And it's receivable, they have the letter. Then I count it as a proper past experience. I asked him for 2, this guy has 4, this guy has 6. Maybe this one needs better point. I use guys, but I mean this firm, right? Could be owned by women, of course. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. Yes, so it's it's a new tool for us to be able to evaluate the performance. Before that, it was mostly qualification criteria. Now it's considered an evaluation criteria, which gives us more liberty, freedom when evaluating the bids, or in this case, the proposals, because as soon as we have this kind of evaluation criteria, it becomes a proposal.
Proposal.
Excuse me, I do have a question which I'm not sure I understand. How, and I asked Fatou to be more specific about this. How is auction related to life cycle management?
How is auction?
Yes, I guess it's about the reverse auction, which is a new method, but I'm not sure.
If it is, okay, please tell Jean-Claude if it's not about that, but if it is about reverse auction, life cycle is usually not used it's usually not used because reverse auction are done online with pre-approved vendors, and the criteria must be very simple because it's an automated process, right? It's other firms that say, I will give you computers with this technical specification, I'll take the lowest price, then they compete until they reach the end of the process. So usually they are not related.
Oh, actually, sorry, she gave me the missing information. She was referring to the disposal of equipment. Okay, so this is clearer. So actually, what is the disposal of equipment? Where does it belong in the life cycle?
Oh, where does disposal of equipment belong? Not auction, disposal of equipment, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
yes, exactly.
Disposal of equipment is when you're getting rid of certain industrial goods, right? You might have, let's say you have a refinery, okay? And you're getting rid of some of the equipment there. Having worked there, I can tell you getting rid of the equipment is sometimes more expensive than buying the equipment. So you will say, what are the standards for getting rid of this specific piece of equipment that you are selling to me? And I will add this to the price just for comparison purposes, of course. I won't pay you more, but because I will have to pay for this. So if one equipment for some reason is easier to maintain, for example, and easier to dispose of, less costly, less environmentally problematic, I will have put criteria on this and I will take it into account in my evaluation. So if it's cheaper to dispose of A versus B, it will have an advantage when comparing the bids.
Okay, thank you. Just to remind you, Maxime, you still have 5 minutes to finish the presentation.
I'm trying to finish, but there were many good questions, right? Okay, so rated criteria like salary costing can be used because for proposal, and normally low bids, unbalanced bid can be rejected upfront, as we said. There's a methodology, you get more. And for project procurement strategy for development, PPSD, helps projects successfully manage procurement risk. In other words, you will have a new document that's mandatory for every project where you will have developed a strategy before launching all your procurement to manage the risk to reach value for money. So that was the end of my presentation. Maybe one last question.
Yes, and by Mr. Taibur Rahman. Hi, Mr. Rahman. This is the last question we're going to take. When the bidder abnormally bid the tender value, what we do for the tuition? I guess for the, I'm
so
not
when
sure.
an abnormally low tender, what do we do to fix this?
Yeah, I guess
okay.
so.
You use the method I was saying, but basically a bid that is determined, it's a mathematical calculation to be an abnormally low tender. You will have to write to the bidder, ask them to justify why their price is low. There's some proper justification with a lot of detail requested. If they cannot justify, you may reject the bid. They're no longer responsive. However, you don't get to keep their bid security, it will be returned. But they're no longer a valid bid, so you don't have to sign with them. It's like not meeting your technical specifications. I hope that answered the question.
Yes, I think so. So I don't have any other questions here. So I think it's the end. I leave you the last word.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, thank you everyone for being there. We were glad we could answer your questions and look forward to an email from us regarding this seminar and various webinars to be offered by SETYM. We're always glad to have to see our old clients or new clients here online during this COVID, and I hope we answered the questions you had. Thank you very much, and I will leave you to this. Thank you.